Everyone, and welcome to tonight's Finance and Governance meeting. I'm Councillor Federica Smith-Roberts and I'm chairing tonight's meeting. We've got Councillor Rob Isaacs being vice chair this evening. So we'll start off with the agenda in front of us. And do we have any apologies? I see Councillor Ed Berman's here, but I haven't heard from him at all. No? And we'll note that sometimes he comes a bit later after work, so we'll just note that hopefully he's coming. Any declarations of interest that aren't normally noted in our declarations that we need to add? And so on to the minutes of our last meeting, which like a lifetime ago, on the 22nd of July. Any questions or comments or changes that need to happen on these at all from those that were present? No, so is everyone happy that I sign them? If anyone would like to propose them?
Yes.
No, second. All those in favour of the minutes as good. Perfect. I will initial and sign these as we go through the meeting. And so we'll move on to the forward plan. Agenda item number 4. Let's just have a look at what we've got coming up moving forward. I am guessing because we're going into budget setting season, that will be the main item of our next agenda. So whilst it only looks like at the moment there's 3 items on the 10th of December's agenda, and most of it will be centred around the budget. Any questions or comments on what's coming forward in those meetings? Welcome, Ed. We need to note this. So I'm happy to propose that we note the forward plan. Seconder. Oh, Councillor Ellis, and all those in favour of noting. Perfect. So we'll go on to the first substantive item on the agenda this evening, which is the licence for Taunton Green and Taunton Bayfall. Just to note that the appendix is confidential. Where possible, I don't really want to go and keep flicking in and out of confidential sessions. So if we can keep as many questions at the moment in the public domain, and if we need to, we can then go into confidential session if needed, because it's actually the lease. So who's presenting this one for me this evening? Oh, Marcus, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. So yeah, thank you, councillors. Hope you had a chance to look through the report. As it says, the Operations and Assets Committee back in June was resolved to accept monthly payments, support the installation of a permanent diamond, and to progress a licence, and also to develop a sports pitch licensing policy. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
Rob, do you want to go first?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Marcus. You mentioned then we should have or develop a sports pitch policies. Easy for me to say. Do we really need one, or would it be a good idea to write one, in your view?
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, I think a lot of local authorities are heading this way in terms of offering those clubs extra certainty in terms of the long term, these longer term agreements. So I think we know that Taunton Baseball is well established. We know we've got a good relationship with them, but I think for the longer term, as and when these come up, it could be a good idea to have a policy in place.
I've got 2 others, Chair, if I may carry on. Reading, excuse me, both papers. I was a little concerned about the risks involved. The agreement can be terminated with 28 days notice of either party. If that should happen in the early tenure of this agreement, who would be financially responsible for putting the green back as it is? Would you have any comment?
Yes.
Yeah, so that would be on the onus on the baseball club to restitute the ground, any ground rights that they have instituted as part of the agreement if the agreement was to cease earlier than the 10 years expected term.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I think it's a really good thing to do. It should generate an income, extra income for the council, and really good. And the consultation feedback looks really good, in favour. One other point there, I would like, if possible, and I'm sure you would put a policy in place for that, but the public liability states in the document there that it has to be available for inspection at our discretion. I would prefer if that public liability was actually sent to us as a matter of course, and renewal, if possible, to keep on file, because and I just make a declaration there that this is in my ward area, and I would hate for a baseball to go through somebody's window or conservatory if we didn't have that ensured that the proper public or indemnity was in place. But that's just my comments there. Thank you.
Any other questions? Sorry, Caroline.
Yeah, I think I voted in favour of this when it came to committee before, and it's great. So there's a public consultation out. I think it started, was it the 10th of October, and it's for 4 weeks, isn't it? So there were quite a lot of shares of that post. So I'm hoping, I haven't seen, I don't know what the sort of feeling is this far into the process, but I think that's really good if we can get people engaged with that. Because I mean, obviously it's not exclusive use. We're not like stopping other people enjoying the facilities at Taunton Green. This is just a particular arrangement to enable the baseball to go from strength to strength, and there'll be lots of gains, I think, for the community. But what my question is around, so say there was some sort of objection, say there was community was like, no, we don't want this, then does that kill it stone dead? Is it, does it come back, if that was to happen, do you come back to a committee? I know they've got to apply for planning, and that takes a while, doesn't it? But so if we give our sort of license, whatever, agree that, obviously subject to consultation, but then what happens if the consultation were to be against it? Would it come back here? What happens?
Really good feedback on.
Yeah, that's right. I think email for councillor. Sorry if you haven't had a chance to get it. I want to give you a snapshot. Obviously, we're in the middle of consultation period, and so we've had 87.95% in favour of and that's 73 respondents with only 12% against, which is 10. And I've provided all of the consultation responses so far. Obviously, if that was to swing significantly in the other way after this meeting and at the end of the closure of we'll analyse the responses. And if we don't feel that we won't sign the licence agreement until the consultation takes place, and if we're not comfortable at that point, then we'll obviously come back to members for a further steer, I would suggest. Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you. I think it's answered in the paragraph underneath, but just about the removal of the the wire backstop from Victoria, the baseball club will be paying for that movement, so it won't be Taunton Town Council. Yeah, and it says that if the football teams there's an overlap. So if there are football teams established there, if we notified them this is coming down the track, so when the overlap's happening, they know they've got to find somewhere else to play, or isn't there established football team there? It's just about comms really, and if we're giving baseball team the priority, it's just good practice to let any football teams know about it so they can make other arrangements.
Thank you, councillor. Yeah, so in terms of that, I know that the council has been aware of the issue with the overlap since our inception. We've had quite productive meetings with the football clubs that use that facility and the baseball club to manage that. I will double check with Jack that the further comms have now that we're getting into that longer term arrangement. But yeah, like you say, it'll be like when the pitches are used in any of the other parks at the weekend, in terms of, you'll be able to go around and walk your dogs in the park like this. And then when the pitch is not being used for baseball activities, you'll be able to cross the playing field. It's in no way sort of restricting the public's access to the open space. It's just facilitating the use of the club to be able to progress, install the requisite backstop and base that they need to grow and develop, and hopefully they'll be able to attract, with the certainty of a long-term license, that grant funding that they think they're out there to help them develop, which is also positive.
Thank you.
I have a few questions, Marcus, based on this, and I'm supportive of what we're doing. I think for me, My first question, I think I've got 5 if I've looked at my notes, is what are we going to do with the other responses that have come in from the consultation? Because I think there are some comments around upkeep. Are we going to reply? Do we have the name and details of those that have completed the consultation so we can answer those queries? And how do we look to put that feedback, if needed, into kind of our process or into officer processes?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so we, if the people out there have supplied their details as part of the consultation response will have done so. I've seen that they have done a few of them on there. So that's certainly something, once the consultation period is closed, we can look to either reply individually or do a sort of end of consultation, the concerns that are raised and how the council proposes to address those concerns. I would suggest to non-publicise that so that addresses those concerns.
And if I've understood correctly, the cost of our legal fees of drafting the licence is circa £1,500. So in effect, in our first year, we're not making much of an income based on the initial amount, but obviously we're going into a 10-year kind of deal. If I've understood the report correctly, we think that the actual drafting of that can be used for future agreements, just with a bit of tweaking, so that we won't need to go external for further kind of licenses or lease agreements, just that we can do it in-house. Is that my understanding? So whilst we're kind of spending a lot now, it should help us in the future.
Yes, that's correct, Chair. So yeah, we're hoping to use this template now that we've got a structure that's been signed off by a solicitor. We can replicate that, as you say, with the sports pitch licensing policy. As and when these come up, we will be able to replicate that and use that for other clubs as well.
And then just in relation to, you were saying, Marcus, around what would happen if the consultation responses at the moment, they're positive, and I hope that they stay that way. I'm just worried about whether we're setting precedent if we agree tonight to go ahead with this without actually having the consultation close, with there being no kind of, so what I'm looking for, kind of coming back to councillors, or at least a review of that, so that actually officers have coverage that a councillor has kind of agreed with moving forward. So I'm wondering if the recommendation needs to just have a tweak to it to say in agreement with, I don't know, even if it's the chair of finance and governance, or with alongside the clerk or deputy clerk, that then we make a joint decision together. So if, because imagine if the consultation response is, I don't know, 65-35, what is our kind of benchmark as to when things come back to committee versus having kind of consent? Does that make sense what I'm saying? Yeah. So I'm wondering whether we just put us tweaking that recommendation so it just in consultation with the chair of finance and government, if the committee's happy for me proposing that. It then just comes.
Chair of Ops and Assets as well, so obviously that's the committee that has approved the idea in the first place, and then yeah, if that could be
Perfect. Carol, you want to come in?
Yeah, no, I agree with your proposal, Fred. I think maybe in future, if there's something that we do need to consult, maybe we do that before giving it our say so. Just to, it seems like a weird way round. I don't know. I just feel more cut in the future if we did it that way around.
I'm relaxed over it, only because sometimes I have it unitary that you do delegated decision where you make it jointly. So if we do the recommendation that it's with the chair of ops and assets, then at least there's coverage. Perfect. Do I need to propose that as a recommendation? I'll propose that. All you seconding?
Yeah.
All those in favour of that amendment, the recommendations? Brilliant. And then just my final question is a timeline on that strategy for the licensing for our parks. What kind of work dates are we heading for? What kind of, how is our resource of being able to make that happen?
I wouldn't say, Chair, that it's high on the priority list, but it's something that we're hoping to look for, and certainly in the next sort of 6 months, a year work programme with the team there.
I just didn't know whether there needed to be in relation to maybe football use. Is there like a seasonal requirement, or we'll just kind of build it into our work programme?
As far as I'm aware, there's not any other sports clubs that are pressing urgently for the same sort of treatments, but yeah, it's something that we think would work well at Taunton Town Council.
Any other questions? So, if we go to the recommendations with the amendment that we've already approved, I'm happy to propose them. Need a seconder further? Oh, and all those in favour? Perfect. We didn't need to go into confidential session either. So we'll go on to the next item, which is the health and safety policy review. I go to John.
I'm happy to do a brief introduction. That's right, Chair. So obviously at the last committee meeting, we had an update on the health and safety policy. And we talked a little bit about the general risk assessment that WorkNest, our external provider of health and safety, do on an annual basis. Obviously this year as a council, we've recruited a health and safety lead, John Kramer, who's with us this evening and has been doing a fantastic job settling in and getting risk assessments and all sorts of other measures in place. One of those is obviously reviewing the general risk assessment that WorkNest provided to us earlier this year. And obviously it's the Finance and Governance Committee's responsibility to facilitate communication and consultation on health and safety issues across the organisation. And yeah, we thought it would be timely for an update to be given on how we're doing against that risk assessment in advance of the next visit and to take any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Perfect. So we've got the report in front of us. Who wants to go with any questions on this? So have you got a list, Rob? You normally, yeah, let's go with you. Not bring Carrie with.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. That is a really good bit of work again done on here in the production of all of these papers. Really good, very interesting. I'm just more looking at the general risk assessment document. I've headed up. Yeah, general risk assessment. There are numerous points on there which there are actions needed, or it says. I'm just wondering how or when those actions will be implemented or go through, and then how will we know as a committee that they've been successfully covered and implemented. There is a priority 1, 2, 3, 4, and there are 23 actions in priority 3. And one was training on gas leaks, for example, and what to do and how to report that and to how to take action against, which I think is a very commendable thing to be doing because of the health and safety of that. But there are several points there where it says action required. I just wondered how we would, scrape the surface of the thing to know that they can carry that out. Thank you, Chair.
I was just going to come back. If you go to page 73, if I've understood the papers correctly, they've got them there with the date completed. Oh, mine's different to yours, that one.
Okay.
But do you want to come in?
Yeah, so just on Appendix B and on the gas safety one specifically, it says that the procedure pavilions is in place and they're currently working on procedures for each pavilion in September and October. And that's the same as well on the actions to take in the gas leak. Procedure is ready. John, I don't know if you've got any.
Yeah, that is now up and running. It's displayed in the 4 pavilions that has gas. So that action's now been closed. It was closed last week. So yeah, procedures are up.
No, thank you, Chair.
So my questions on this, if I was looking at Appendix B, if I've understood correctly, there are only 5, but now 4 that are currently open. Is that right? So because all the ones that are in pink have been completed.
Ones that are left open now is the on priority 2, which is Legionella management. Me and Jack are working on that at the moment. So that's ongoing at the moment. And the other one is the infection prevention and control. There is a policy out now, and it's just come back from SLT. I've got to review that and review their comments. Hopefully that'll be up and running by early next month.
So my next question from this is so why have we still got this outstanding? When will this come back again to us at Finance and Governance so that we can completely close down the report to say that everything that was brought up in this report has now been done? Should we have it on next agenda just so that we can go, yeah, we're happy, or that actually there's still risk because we're still working on our Legionellas as an example? I don't know what the audit process is.
Quarterly updates, maybe? Quarterly updates reasonable?
There will be another visit from WorkNest in January, I think, so they'll produce a new report based on what's been done in 12 months' time, so that can be brought back as well, hopefully sooner than this one has been brought to your attention.
So I know we just said quarterly, do you have just an update, even if it's verbal at our December meeting, if we know that WorkNest are coming in January, and then at least we know that hopefully the only things that are outstanding, if they've not been done by then, is the two. That would be then we at least have an update. Would that work? Put that on the forward plan. Any other questions? Paul, and then Carrie, and then Beth?
Yes. Look, to bring it up again because it's kind of a topic we touch on, but under the Legionnaire management, I know it's a serious thing and I appreciate us taking action on it, but I just wanted to clear up. It says that Somerset Council are responsible for the management of Legionella in this building, but we're having to take action by getting a contractor in to assess it and pay for that, and are we doing that for the whole building or just, I don't know how Legionnaire spreads or where it is, but I thought it was worth highlighting because if we're, I don't know the arrangement, but it seems odd that we're having to do that if it's Somerset's building.
Just Jack deals with that, so I have no idea when the process is for Somerset.
The WorkNest, whether they are the landlord of this building, where it says that the management and TTC buildings, that's not outsourced any longer. That came back in-house last April 2024. So I think that's a mistake in the report that WorkNest provided in terms of Legionella compliance. I think it's RMC, isn't it, the company that we currently have a contract with in terms of providing the Legionella risk assessments, and then is it our guys that go out and do some of the flushing and the testing on the weeklies? And
yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
Carrie, and then Beth?
Yeah, I just, in light of that, what it says on the thing, however, RMC, Legionella compliance currently being dealt with by RMC, however, we have had issues with documentation. I just wonder what that exactly meant. And my other second question is, so this WorkNest will be an annual thing, they will come in the January, obviously this January 2025, the areas assessed for Deane House, the offices here, and then Victoria Park and Hamilton and the pavilions there. Presumably the next one will cover the, we didn't have the depot obviously when you booked that visit, so now we'll have the depot, and you've got pavilions elsewhere. I mean, Taunton Green's very actively used, but I'm imagining it will extend, will it not, to all of the pavilions and the depot?
All of the council then, owned ones, yeah.
yes.
And what about the documentation issue then?
I think it was around the speed of the turnaround without wanting to badmouth the company, but yeah, I don't know if John.
The last, sorry mate, the last conversation I had with Jack, RMC do all the Legionella, but trying to get the documentation off them straight away is time consuming. So we get them, but not in a timely manner. So we're looking at that. We do, like I say, we do our own flushing at every location that's been recorded. We had an incident last week, which was dealt with straight away. But yeah, it's something me and Jack are looking into when he returns back off leave with the two new staff.
Yes, just to reassure councillors, yeah, the testing with Legionella, yeah, but that's all in place. It's just, I think, a preference to move from to a different contractor with the paperwork. So just to reassure that it doesn't, it's not in a sense that we're not compliant at all with our obligations in respect of that.
Thanks, Chair. I will mention this bit in a minute, but I bumped into Jack at Garlington Pavilion last week, and he was looking at he was meeting somebody from the contracting company to look at the Legionella. So yeah, I can say that they are, but we as a town council are going around all the pavilions, and the paperwork isn't us, it's contractor. And all it was is just to say how delighted I am to see that the mental health first aider training approved is under the stress management on there, which is a good thing to see. Thank you. Thanks, John.
Any other questions on this one? Happy? I'm suggesting with that alteration that we'll get an update in December, but I don't think we need to change any of the recommendations, do we? Can I have a proposer? Oh, seconder? All those in favour? Perfect. So we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the change control policy. And I believe this over to you. Okay.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So within this report, we're proposing a mechanism for change within our projects, whereby the project change control policy will enable the projects team to have delegated authority to make minor changes to the scope, budget and timeline, as per those that would be agreed in each project that would be reported to the council. And then we're also introducing a project governance approach, which proposes to set up an internal monitoring board whereby projects will be supported within the board, maintaining oversights on project delivery, consider change control requests, risks, issue logs, and any new potential projects. So the board aims to meet every 6 weeks, which will include the town and deputy clerk, RFO, and the projects team. It's to allow more control over project changes, really, and allow decisions to be approved at a quicker rate, and to reduce the risk of project delays due to quicker approval times. So definitions of minor, moderate and major changes in the scope and timeline will be considered for each individual project, since we're unable to classify specific definitions for each project because we don't really know what each project is going to be. And the project control policy is in Appendix 1 and the governance approach is in Appendix 3. Is there any question?
Any questions? Bev?
It was only just a quick query, really. When Tilly mentioned the board and he was part of that particular board, it was just, I know we've got a lot on, but I just wondered whether we should have a councillor representation on that.
Is one of my questions. Or how do we keep members up to date ultimately?
Yeah. Thanks, Jim.
So yeah, we have our programme board. We also had the working group as well. So that's not delegated decisions in that, but we'd look to also inform the major projects working group, sorry, but I don't know how we discuss if a councillor wanted to be on there as such.
Somebody from the working group.
Yeah, I just wonder whether it's just keeping the major project working group up.
Yeah, we would.
Today, probably. It's just that whole, sometimes things don't seem large, novel or contentious, but they can be large, novel or contentious in kind of a political arena, kind of community feel. Does that make sense? So I think just keeping up to date allows things to either be fixed quickly by people knowing about it or just seeing a view. Go for it, Donna.
Yeah, I was just going to say perhaps we can just add a step in under the governance approach that we any changes and recommendations will be shared with the major projects working group, just so there's an official step in there to say that you're being notified of those changes.
I thought about that when I put my notes saying change of control form, that actually there was a thing on there that just said members informed, and it just that keep member notified approach that we tried to do. Cool.
Yeah, my question first of all was kind of, how does the council define a project as such? Is it a cost or is it a length of time? So I was thinking last night, when we put all the measures into the park to prevent illegal incursions, that's not classed as a project. Would I be right in that sense? Just quickly.
Ironically, we had this discussion today. A project is anything which has got a start and a finish date.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Great. That's pretty clear.
Yeah.
Even if that's proposed start and finish date. Yeah. Okay. So it says with the change thresholds and approval levels that anything over 5, and I know you can't be too specific here, but if a project costs, it's the 5% thing that comes back to council. I'm not sure if, you know, if a project costs £10,000 and that's all, if there's a 5% change in the cost of that, does it really need to come back to council, or is that your job, Donna, in the working group to say, actually, that's not, should it be an amount as well? Or do you get what I'm getting at? Obviously, if it's a £2 million project and there's a 5% change, that's quite a lot of money, but I wouldn't want you to feel that you had to keep coming back to council for minimal amounts of money.
So I just go back, I think it's because that's in our financial regulation.
Okay.
So anything over a 5% would have to come back to committee. As it
Can be a committee and not full council.
yeah,
So by council, okay.
Oh, by council you mean committee?
it can be either.
Yeah.
depends on what
Okay,
it is.
sorry, I thought you meant full council, sorry.
And I interpreted that to be full council. Maybe we just need to put committee, because I was thinking if we have to do changes to come back to full council, we could be then delay project because of it.
Yeah.
Any other questions? No? So I just need a proposer for those recommendations. Ed, and a second down. All those in favour? Thank you very much, Tilly. We've now got the information technology policy at item number 8. Paul, you introduce this one to us?
Yeah, that'll be me. Just got my.
Oh, look, that Paul just got very concerned.
I'm getting used to it now. We've got a number of pools. Yes. So for those I haven't met, I'm Paul Vickery. I'm the business optimization lead. I manage our IT contract with Cloudy and also look at internal processes and try and improve them. As far as our IT policy goes, so attestation 10 from the 2025 Practitioners Guide requires that all smaller authorities hold an IT policy. We've already had one since inception, however, it's now due for review. The review period has been reduced down to 1 year from previously 2 years. Attestation 10 also requires that email is hosted on our own domain and individual user accounts are used. Whilst that's standard practice already, that's also been clarified in the policy. You'll notice it looks a little bit nicer. We've got a nice new cover page thanks to our design and comms officer. We'll be updating all our policies on our website with this over the coming months, and also ensuring all the formatting is standardised. That'll be logged as minor revision changes. There'll be no content changed within them when this is done. We've expanded guidance on passwords and multi-factor authentication. There's a section on bring your own device and the expectations surrounding that. We are going to be introducing sensitivity labelling. There's going to be, and we'll also need all users to sign the updated policy, and that will include councillors. Are there any questions on that at all? Of course. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, I think it's quite a simple question, really. Obviously, you say we've had this policy since, since inception.
Not this policy, but a policy.
Yeah. I just wonder, when we do have policies, obviously, any new bits, would it be an idea to sort of pull out the bits where we've, either highlight them for our copy, yellow, these are the bits we've updated, so that we know which bits it is?
We can definitely arrange that. Typically, we track changes, so we've got an easy comparison to make. This one was a much heavier rewrite, so I don't have that available, unfortunately. But if you want to sort of clear a breakdown of changes, I can arrange it for you.
I think it. Well, this is just for me. I think it would make our lives a bit easier if we could just see which bits have actually been changed, so that we don't, we've read the policy still exists, but obviously they're going to be updated year in, year out, month or whenever there's needed. So it's just really just for us just to see what's been changed.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll take that on board and take a look into it. It should be quite easily possible through the track changes feature in Microsoft Word.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. I don't think that's just for you, Paul. I think that's just probably a generic point for everyone, that where it's actually quite good where we see the change log. So I'm looking at the change log going, okay, this is what we've changed, because we've already signed off on the policy beforehand. Where, the track change is just an added benefit for us all, I think.
Yeah, to be fair, that usually does happen. I think this one, because it was quite a big rewrite, wasn't it? The whole policy. I think if you'd have tracked changes, there'd have been more changes than was.
And then that makes
It's
it different.
a big sea of red, and you can't see what's going on.
Any other questions on this?
Of course.
Yes, thank you. Good to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
I think I've discussed this before or brought it up before. And I don't know if it's the IT policy or the data retention policy or the data regulation policy.
Mhm.
But I understand that, well, I know that staff go through training and they have to sign that they read the different processes and procedures, especially for malware and ransomware and all that sort of thing. I'm not sure whether the councillors do as such.
I'm not 100% sure on that. I'll have to look into it and get back to you. I know we did. Sorry, go on, Donna.
I was just going to say that the request has actually gone out today for Stephen Norris to look at arranging some training for councillors on all of that as well. So obviously, because you've got to sign up to this policy, to sign you've understood it, to make sure that you've received the training as well for it.
Yeah, thank you, Donna. That's really good. I would hate to think that we've clicked on something, we got a ransomware, inside somewhere. So yeah, thank you. That's clear that up for me. Thanks.
I was just going to add that. I'm wondering if that needs to be like compulsory training, like through our to councillors to make them do it. Can we make councillors do compulsory training? Or can we make it highly recommended?
I'd like to say yes.
I highly recommend it so that we do.
Training on IT.
Yeah. Useful, wouldn't it? Any other questions on the IT policy? Yes, sorry.
It's not, it's not quite on the IT policy. You're all right, Paul.
Okay, that's fine. Good.
Just going back to what you were saying about the ransomware thing. I mean, the majority of us as councillors use our iPads, and our iPads hopefully won't have anything nasty on it because they're centrally controlled from here, aren't they? You know, the updates are all controlled from Cloudy, I guess. They do all the updates, everything else. So unless we surf the net on here, but I would have thought our iPads are actually protected against such things. Or maybe, is that
It can
right?
just be an email, can't it, that comes through with a clicking link.
If they do get anything that, I know any iffy emails come through, they get quarantined straight away online, they do.
It should be typically safe unless you download anything. The idea of the training is it's only consensus to stop you sort of seeing what might be suspicious if you see a link coming through, to stop you sort of going through and downloading that. But just sort of browsing normally when nothing like that would happen.
Yeah, and that's not taken away from the training. Absolutely, we all sort of think it's just for my peace of mind to know that our iPads are protected for us. Just as our own laptops at home, computers at home are protected with spyware, malware, and whatever. So,
If you ever do see anything suspicious, if you can report it to Cloudy and they can take a look over it for you as well.
thank you.
Any other questions? Just need a proposer for the recommendations. Go for Rob, seconded by Paul. All those in favour? Perfect. Thank you, Paul. And we've got data retention next.
Again.
You're doing that again? Not, I've got Bridie's in there.
Yeah, I'm back to back 3 times now. But the data retention policy, this one's a lot more straightforward. There's been a slight amendment to explicitly include electronic documents to comply with the attestation term. These additions are detailed in section 6, page 6 of the updated policy, but there haven't been any further changes. We have reviewed all the retention periods and are satisfied that they still ensure compliance.
Any questions on this one?
Yes.
Sorry, Caroline, sorry.
I'm just going through my notes when I speed read this at breakfast. It says, what is the council archive room? Bit confused. Somerset Council History Centre, what does that mean? Where is it? Do you mean their website? And I was just noting that people need access to minutes and agendas across several years previously. There's things that come up. This happens to me all the time. And it refers back to somebody said, oh, I'm sure Taunton Deane Borough Council once did X. And I'm like, right, I'm going to damn well scour the interweb and try and find the record of that meeting where X happened, get the background. I mean, this happens a lot.
Yeah.
I'm like thinking where all of our stuff is. Now you've got the meetings and the notes and whatever on our website. At a certain point, they will cease to be on our website. Where do they exactly live in the world after X years or whatever? Because people still need to search back, don't they, to find important things like that. And yeah, what are the this was me at breakfast. What is the council archive room? What is Somerset Council History Centre? They're not mean Southwest Heritage. The Heritage Centre, is that what it means?
Well, I'm not sure on that, so I don't.
I know, but I'm going to go for it.
So
Go on.
all minutes have to be we have to have a hard copy of them kept. And so each year, what we're saying, obviously we've only had 2 years worth of minutes, they have to be bound, and then they can go into an archive storage. We haven't obviously had the requirement at the moment to store any of them because we've got big services in it. But in the future, that's what will happen with them.
So where will they be stored, here or?
We haven't quite got,
Oh, we don't know that.
don't know yet, but yeah. We have those discussions because I know that there was Somerset Council as well. They've got an archive storage, whether or not we could over at the big house have a look to see where we could store them. But no, every year they all get bound.
And we will continue to always keep them online, because a bit like how Caro does, I go on a little bit of a trawl sometimes, and you can go all the way back looking for like, 10, 15 years ago, looking for like where decisions have been made to hopefully then help.
Yeah, fortunately, we haven't got lots of history, so we can have all of our minutes up on the website for now. But it might become an issue with storage at some point.
Yeah.
Also, no.
Depends what it is. We pay more for our website storage because it's through a content delivery network than we do for, say, SharePoint. So if it gets sort of prohibitive cost-wise, then we can move them back onto SharePoint. But ideally, we want to keep as much publicly available all the time as possible.
And when it's the history centre, do you mean the heritage, the stuff that goes to the heritage centre? Certain things, like a record of all our doings or something. I'm sure it says, I didn't write down stupidly the page. This is my notes.
That's what I interpreted it to be before.
Yeah, I'm assuming
from
it must be.
previous council's knowledge, but whether that's that. Well, you're just looking for that. My only question is whether or not what we had brilliantly on the last policy was saying what the version changes was. This doesn't have it on this policy update timeline.
No.
You brilliantly told me it was section 6 that had been added. I'm just wondering whether we can just add that in for posterity to say that's what was in this one. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't write this policy, but we are going to be going through manually and reviewing all the policies to try and get that in there. Where we, can easily access that information on what the changes were made, we'll put that in retroactively too. But otherwise, I'll still be, all set up with that new formatting and all that same guidance for anything moving forward.
Really good on the last one, so it's good to see. Yeah, section 6. Any other questions? I'm happy to propose this one. You want a seconder? Can I have a seconder? Paul, you're seconding everything today. All those in favour? Perfect. Now the data protection regulation policy.
That's right. So this is the last one. It was due up for review. However, there haven't been any changes. It remains fit for purpose. So it's just to sort of sign it back off again for the time being. There's likely to be an update at some point next year, conditional on potential recruitment though.
My only question on this is just in relation to actually all of our policies. Do we look at what other councils are doing or other bodies? Do we get guidance from NOC or SOC or anything? Or are we left to our own devices?
I can come back. So yeah, guidance, they do have a suite of policies that you could use, and that's through SRCC or NOC. However, good practice is I think all officers will scour every quality gold council and check what policies they have, and then they will tweak or
So as we're
rather than
gold now,
I know that everyone uses all of our policies.
Policy like the other councils.
Yes, we get quite a few that says, where's your policy on so and so, because we want to follow it.
We are gold, see? Okay. I just thought I'd double check, because for such complex policies which are there, especially just sharing it and not reinventing the wheel probably makes life easy for people.
We're often heavily inspired, or at least I can speak for myself, I am.
Any other questions? No proposal? Bev, and a seconder? Caro? All those in favour? Okay, so that was the last of your report now.
That's right, thank you.
Thank you for coming to Finance and Governance for the first time. And on to financial resilience. Report.
It's me.
Perfect.
Evening, members. Thank you. This is the second report we've made to yourselves, covering the period July to September. Little bit alike this one in respect of grants and still in section 106. I'll talk about the interest rate in a minute. In respect of just a quick overview of grants, we were unfortunate not to receive the grant for the visa Let's Celebrate Towns, but on the positive note, we had some really positive feedback, and certainly if they put it in place for next year, I think we'll be in a strong position to apply again. So that is positive. There were a couple of grants that we were unfortunately unable to apply for, capacity and what project we could deliver. Some of the ones that are coming out of recent times, especially government wise, are quite short timelines. So that does make it quite difficult to actually apply. We have had some good conversations with Lottery about parks and play equipment. I think we had been hoping to apply for majority of our parks, but it appears that we can probably only apply for 2 of our parks, and they're the 2 in the most deprived areas within town council area. But it's still a hefty, it's still a substantial sum that we could apply for. That is currently pending, obviously the award of the contractor, and whatever that contractor subsequently does on consultation. Once we've got that, then we can reconsider our position on that. There's a couple of other ones there. The disc golf one, it's not a fund that we can apply for, but obviously we're still pursuing disc golf in Councillor Smith Roberts' request, but Somerset Golf can apply. It's a European fund, but we can support them. And last one is we have applied to the Abbey Harris Murial Fund for the mural at Bridge Street and Wood Street. Section 106, we have put in the expression of interest for the transport hub, which is the land at Killams. There is still some work to do on that one, but again, we are sort of progressing that one. And again, we'll progress the an expression of interest for the Coal Orchard money once we're in a better position to understand what the contractor is going to do and how that will play out. Good news is we did actually have our first letting of this meeting room for Somerset Rivers Authority. It was very much a sort of test run to see how it all works, and we were, I think, quite pleased with the results. A couple of things came up, little tweaks which we've made to both the guidance and the booking form, mainly just to make sure people are very much aware that they're not allowed to park in a circle below, they have to park in the Belvedere car park, but also as well to try not to test our patients about the length of stay. We book a half day. The other thing that obviously from the last quarter's meeting, Donovan Keeney pointed out that we hadn't really included interest on our investments. So I have added back in the monies we've received from April to June, as well as the monies received from July to September. So that's just a quick overview for you. At last meeting, Councillor Smith Roberts asked for a quick overview of SIL funding, and I've included that. So my intention is to try and do one-off bits and pieces like this, just so for your information. So what this shows you is actually the monies that we received for the last 3 financial years. Obviously, we're still pending the October payment, which hopefully should be through in the next couple of weeks. But then also you can see on the right-hand side, obviously, when we have to spend that money by. Based on the monies that we've spent so far, we have spent our 15% allocation, and we are starting to spend our 25% allocation. As members will know, the majority of that allocation and total allocation is still sort of pending the final cost for the bridge. But overall, that's where we currently are with SIL. So happy to take any questions.
Karen?
Yeah, so I just added all, I like adding up numbers when they're big and it means we have money. So I did. So are you basically saying we've got like just shy of £350,000 worth of SIL in our bank?
I think, yeah, to be, yes.
Hiding.
We've just, obviously, we just spent the latest monies was obviously for the sign for Pidland Garden Bridge, but we've got just under 250,000, and that's without the payment that we're due shortly.
Or another bit's coming in, is it?
Yes.
How much?
We have benefited, there's no doubt we've benefited from the Orchard Grove development, because obviously Kroll had a neighbourhood plan, so we get the 25%. At the moment, obviously Orchard Grove has teetered out a little bit, so we are reliant on the bits and pieces and the phasing of SIL payments for other developments across the town, but I'm not expecting a huge sum in the next month. But if Orchard Grove, which I understand is getting back up building again, then we may see some more, an increase in revenue next year.
Any questions before I ask my questions? Paul?
I just wanted to ask generally about the comment around, I know short time spans and stuff, short windows to apply for grants, but is there a need for councillors to look at the capacity which prevents, do we have, you know,
I think in for both of those, I think they probably came from a bit of left field.
right?
The million hours fund in particular was picked up really by chance. It wasn't on our grants officer. Will, he goes through every week and checks the grant. We've got Grant Find, and there's another one he does as well, and I can't think of what it's called. So some of these do come from left field, but I think in conversations earlier in the week with Gail, what I think we need to try and do is, once we've got a good idea of what our priorities are moving forward, then let's see how we can develop some ideas about projects, and then we've got almost have a register, and on the basis that we'll change checks every week. For example, the Million Hours Fund, I found it came through an email from me. So, you know, if we all keep our eyes open, then we will pick them up. Unfortunately, some of the funds, and as I said, are on quite tight timescales, but they're also very oversubscribed as well, which makes, you know, applying for them, you know, doubly difficult.
Just to be clear, that wasn't a criticism in any way of officers. It was just to make sure that if you know, there's pots of £100,000 out there, you know, it'd be nice to make sure we've got capacity to apply for them when they're relevant. That was all.
And maybe I think I was going to pick up on that point before, just to come in, because I was thinking, even if we can't apply, do we have the connection? So for me, for that one, for like Taunton East being identified, I know obviously that's the area I represent in Unitary, was whether we could pass it on to the Link Centre or the Rotary Club to go, actually, have you seen this? Do you think, is there, just letting you know, in case you want to do anything, if we can't do it, we could still write a letter of support.
Yeah,
help you get there.
That's a good point. It's a very good point, Councillor. And you know, certainly I think we can certainly do that.
Yeah, just to add to the Priorswood Community Centre to that list.
And Beth.
Yeah, all I was just going to say is, will once Staple Grove building starts, that as well?
Well, it depends. At the moment, it will add to our sale, and at the moment, obviously, as members know, we've started the development of our neighbourhood plan. Once that neighbourhood plan is agreed and signed off by all parties, then we will get the increased 25%. But at the moment, then it will only be the 15%, but we will get money from Staple Grove. We'll get a significant contribution from Staple Grove. But judging by the amount of time that the roadworks, we will probably have the neighbourhood plan in place by then.
Thank you. And I was just going to say, I agree also about with Federica about looking at how we can actually look at applying for different pots of money by different methods. And I think this leads into Gail's report later on, doesn't it, about the medium strategy plan, about looking at other ways of securing external funding. So it all ties in nicely with all of that. Thank you.
I think one of the things that also some of this does indicate as well is probably the need to work more in partnership with some organisations, certainly either local voluntary community sector or other local partners like Somerset Council, you know, to actually, you know, strengthen odds for both parties. So although, you know, if we do work with a local voluntary sector organisation, we don't necessarily get the funding indirectly. We can say that we've got the funding into the town council, and that's probably the most important factor, regardless of whether it goes into our benefit.
And interesting, that was going to be my point, because I was just looking at that Lionesses funding, thinking actually Taunton Town Football Club is wanting now to do lots more around girls and grassroots football. We know that they're changing facilities, I believe haven't been updated for some time, and I don't even think there's women's changing facilities at Taunton, but I could be wrong on that. But it would be good to link them up, because they may have more success at applying than us applying for a pavilion, if that makes sense. So, but if they had our support, knowing that it's growing girls grassroots football, for me, that's like a really positive thing.
Yeah, certainly by all means, we can certainly do that. And I think that's probably something we'll expand into as we start to understand the funds out there. And
I don't have any further questions. Any other comments? No. I'm happy to propose this note. Any other? Sorry, a seconder. Paul's not here, see, he's left me, so I've got a fair few quick second. All those in favour of noting? Thank you, Angela, for this piece of work and taking on board our feedback from last time. We are on to the risk management review.
Thank you, councillors. This is the 6 monthly update for your information on the risk register for the council. Briefly, we've got 28 risks overall. We have 9 as amber and 19 as green. We did have, in the previous iteration, we did have a red risk, but that has been moved into amber following significant mitigation being put in place. We've closed one risk, which was around accessibility under governance. That was really following all the issues we had with the lifts here. That's obviously now been resolved. A number of risks have been been amended through actions, either being removed or added. And we've identified through the review, the July review, 4 new risks, which I'll set out in the report for you. So happy to take any questions.
Harry.
Not saying that. I'm just going through my notes. They raise that parallel. I don't think I can do so diplomatically. Yeah, no, I better not go there. Yeah, there was one issue around the meeting venue. So we know we have the lift with perennially breaking, and it seems to have it's not been broken for a while. And there is a back thingy-badong that we've used in the past.
Yes, there is a second lift back in.
Does that easily get somebody from down there to here without?
The only issue with the lift at the back is that they have to come in through the back entrance.
Right.
There isn't a direct route now anymore from the front of the building through to the back, so they'd have to come through to the back and come in. The only issue we've got to have is if we do want to use that lift, then we have to make sure facilities take the alarm off, because currently that's part of what was originally the CMT part of the offices. Obviously they're not there anymore, so the alarm is on, but if we do need to use it, then we can ask facilities to take the lift off and the alarm off, and we can use that lift.
Okay. And I know that we've had, I think there have been issues in the past where somebody came late to a council meeting and couldn't get in and whatever. And we've got the lovely guys downstairs who were there to let people in. But I just wonder if there's something else we couldn't do to sort of signal there's a meeting going on and you can actually come in. Well, sometimes they've come up and they got stuck at the door. They can get stuck at the door.
We had a member of the public, didn't we, at full council, who couldn't get in and was late.
Yes, yeah.
So yeah, that was I think what you were referring to.
Do we have a way of?
Is there a doorbell? There's a doorbell, wasn't there? But that's further along the wall. Is there a doorbell?
There was a doorbell outside. Yeah.
Would we hear it in here though? If we were in here on a meeting, we would hear it. Would have been. Oh, and there was another thing. Hang on. What was the other one? Oh yes. Yeah. And this might be one because the risk register mentions the thing about the safeguarding the parks against illegal encampments. We've also got this issue of well, there's lots of issues bound up in here as well. There's risk of injury from people who are partially sighted and don't see the little low thingies, the ones that we've got in currently, say for example at French Weir. So that needs picking up on. I think there has been a meeting about that on Friday. Yeah. And also the issue about emergency services access, because as I understand it, Marcus is still trying to chase the different agencies to make sure that they are okay with getting in and don't have an issue getting in. To me, that's like I would be losing sleep over that, and it's like I don't quite understand how that doesn't get bottomed out before we put the things in. I don't know, these are things that Councillor Ellis gives me the heebie-jeebies, so I thought I might as well just say they give me the heebie-jeebies.
We've got some learning points, haven't we, from that project in general?
It's been reviewed.
Any other questions, Paul?
Yeah, I think I can ask a question, even if because I nipped out, I can ask a question.
Yeah.
It's just a bit more detail around the severe weather. I thought immediately of office workers and travelling to the office, but then I thought about our parks people, and so if there's a store, if a tree came down in one of our parks, who makes that assessment about whether we send someone out when it's really bad weather? Is that where that's coming from? And my final question is, does everybody have the facility to work from home if they need to? Just a bit more detail, really.
We have an adverse weather policy, which we're in the process, following obviously all the heat notices in the summer, we'll update. So there should be a comms route that if there is a weather warning in place, whether that is yellow, amber or red, then there should be comms out, and then the manager's responsible specifically for our parks and open spaces, and our staff who do the external works should then undertake a risk assessment as to what's going to be done and not, as the case may be. So that is the general process. Certainly, obviously, if it's a red notice, it's a risk to life. So anyway, so they work shouldn't get on. It's the yellow and amber ones which are probably a little bit more difficult to determine, because obviously, yellow warning can be in place till 10 AM, but the actual
The event,
can continue for a few hours after that. But we do have a policy, and I am going to process on the agenda for this week to go through and review it, and then it can come back through yourselves just for you to see, and it should offset some of the risks that we may face. But with the increasing, if you take a review of the last 6 months and the amount of warnings we've had, certainly around heat and things like that, then there is a real need to ensure that we do understand and have policy practices in place to support either our staff or your good selves.
Carrie?
The weather comment has triggered a little thing in my brain, and the thing is this, and I can't remember if we've had a discussion on this or if there's like a project going on it with like an emergency plan for Taunton. So like, for example, I was doing a media interview the other day off the back of Somerset agreeing the funding for the left bank of the River Tone flood alleviation thingy improvements things, and I was getting asked loads of questions, and then she was asking about what should people do to be prepared for a flood. So I gave a few things, and I thought, oh, we're meant to have don't we have, as a town council, aren't we meant to have like a plan for how we will respond? So I mean, flooding is one, hopefully won't happen.
It's Sunset Prepared Day that we just had last week even, so you have to come to next year's ones, Carrie.
Yeah, no, but aren't we, because I've seen the lovely lady who also is a thespian did a presentation at Bishop's Hole Parish Council.
Yeah, that's Pen.
Yeah. And they were all like, yes, and we're going to do our emergency plan, and I'm like, piddle, do we have one?
We have in place, obviously, the more important, slightly more important document, which is our business continuity plan. So that protects us as a council if there's disruption to service. There isn't a need for an emergency plan, and that emergency plan will set out our response, because we're not a category 1 responder as Somerset Council would be, our response in an emergency on what resources we would make available should an emergency happen. And that's where I think we're going to try and place our emergency plan as a town council. So that's a piece of work that I'm taking on, and I've started writing it. It's just one of those ones where you need a good sort of
a week. It's not
2 days, not
Diary.
Yeah. So but it will be coming back through to you, and I would hope that in the next few weeks, I would imagine there's a period that there will be some consultation to be done, and there will be some. I know Somerset Council, Nicola in particular, is very keen for us to have one, because obviously Taunton and the county town and things like that. So yeah, there is that work is underway. So.
Just cheekily.
Somerset Prepared, it's a website.
Yeah, no, I've had the Nicola present and thought it was really good. She's been to the she came to the LCN a while back as well. Yeah, so like obviously we'd need to do that and have some sort of partnership on the ground, because I'm imagining like there's a network of volunteers still left over. Well, there is in my patch from like COVID and stuff.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, and there's like Rotary, there's all different on the ground grassroots organisations. So
I think for us as a town council, it's how we marshal some of that support. It's going back to the capacity is where we then at what point do we then take the focus away from this, put it onto that. So there's probably some sort of like internal discussions to be had, but hopefully having the first draft out in the next few weeks, and then we can sort of start working through what we need to do and how we can support it. But in all fairness to Nicola and Somerset Council, they will fully support us anyway and guide us through what else, if there's anything we're missing. But
did you have a question? I've got a question. Just trying to understand where we go. So I think this risk belongs to Gail, but just trying to understand if we took PO2 as an example, the inherent risk was 12. The current risk back in July 6, and our target risk is wanting it to be 2. We can see that we've done some really good work on it in relation to, you know, recruitment of procurement officer, those elements. Then got the italic saying, is it currently 6 because we've yet to do the procurement, the actively pursuing use of government framework agreements? Is it because that's not been finalised, or what are we now doing to get it down to a 2?
I think it's fair to say the risk register was done in July, so that's the last time we reviewed it. We are moving forward with that, and that will, the mitigations will reduce the score, the residual risk, the next time we review it.
Perfect. I was just trying to work out what we're on all of these at amber, because we've done so well moving the red ones to amber. How are we now moving the amber ones down to green? And I guess my other question will be, remind me when we review if we need to add things to this. When do we do like a?
We're doing another review once post this committee. We'll do another review towards the end of this month, early November.
Yep.
So that will be almost like quarter 2, quarter 3, and then we'll do a review again in January, and then we'll do probably in January we'll do an update report to your good selves again, so you can see the progress we made. And if needs be, then what I'll do in that report then is I'll show the path for members as well. So take for example PO2. You know, in July we were and then you can sort of see the demonstrable reduction in our score, and therefore our overall risk.
Any other questions? I'm happy to propose this one. Need a seconder, Rob? All those in favour? And Paul's not voting because he left the room. That one's carried. So thank you very much. We're now to our financial update. If you go, thank you.
Thank you. So attached is the financial update for quarter 2. Shows that there's been no material variances exceeding the £30,000, which is laid down in the financial regulations, but there is some operational pressure on spend, particularly in operations and assets, where we've been having to hire vehicles to cover the MEV issues, and also some compliance related work. We've now got to a stage where the vehicles that have been agreed by council are being ordered. We were waiting to get the credit limit agreed before we could do that, because they're being ordered under a leasing arrangement. There are some other areas in quarter 2 that you can see that are quite underspent. So not only by being questioning the budget holders that are overspending, but all of those that are underspending, to see where we can spend that money before the year end. Although in some cases there's pressure on the teams to have the capacity to deliver. In addition, attached is the balance sheet and the reserves at the end of September. There's been some budget violence to cover overspends based on areas that where we have been able to take underspend. So there's no pressure from doing those violence. And finally, just an audit update. The external audit for 24-25, so that was the last financial year, was completed, and we received an unqualified report with no matters arising. We're just about to get our first internal audit report for this year. Our internal audit visit, sorry, for this year. Any questions?
What I will do, which is I think how I did it last time, because we always cover a lot in this paper, is I'll take each section separately for questions.
Okay.
Otherwise we'll end up jumping all right. So if we take the budget first, which is, I guess, appendix 1, which is the income and expenditure, but you've also given us the reasons in section 2. This is kind of where I guess we get the high level detail. Have we got any questions on that? So it's appendix 1 and what's in section 2 of the report. Caro.
I'm not sure which section I'm in,
Okay.
because there's
You're
very
gonna,
big.
you're going to ruin my little organised plan here.
My only question, I had a question, EMR staffing for £200,000, and I was like, why do we have an EMR for staff.
We'll contact them, that's the earmarked reserves, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Yeah,
We're in the wrong section.
yeah, wait a minute for that one. Paul, any questions?
I don't think so. Which sections are we in?
We are looking at
Appendix 1.
Appendix 1
No.
and Section 2. So this is like our, where are we against the budget this year and how are we performing? My question while you're looking at that, because I have a question around 2.5. And it's slightly related to this year's budget, but also next year's. Are we, when we're now doing next year's budget, even though we are putting in safety measures for unauthorised encampments, are we learning from what we've spent this year to help draft our legal budget next year?
We put a small amount of legal budget in next year. What we're doing next year is not allocating it to parks, but we're just having a legal, and we're doing the same for quite a lot of the park maintenance and the compliance and all of those sorts of things. So we're putting them in buckets so that we can allocate them out as they're spent to the correct cost centres, so that it's just easier in a full amount and then allocating it out by part, rather than trying to work out by each part where we're going to spend the money at this stage for next year.
And just a subsequent question on that. So even though we've got one pot of money for, say, a certain subject like parks, even you'll then allocate to cost centres, so you could still do the data analysis to see what we're spending per park.
Yes.
But it's just making it easier that it's not little mini pots against each park.
Yes, and because while we've consolidated that at the moment, we can see that there's quite a lot of underspending in some areas and quite a lot of overspending in others.
So just, yeah. Any questions on how the 25-26 budget is forming? That's appendix 1 or 2. If not, we'll move on.
It's got one small one, if I may, Gail. On appendix 1, because we're on grants committee as well, we've had a refund this month. It looks like 11,060.
Yes, I think
Sorry, it's detailed.
Gates me what the money was for.
It's a venue grants reclaim.
We did ask for the money back from Coach.
Yes. So will that go back into the venue grants pot?
No, it's an income that can be set off against the venue grants pot, but it is income, so it has to be shown as income.
Yeah, okay. I just wanted, if somebody, I just wanted this. That's good, thank you.
Do you want to come in there, Caro, on the next section, which is EMRs, the earmarked reserves and the balance sheet?
Section 3.
Section 3.
It's waving.
Do you have another question?
Would you
Sorry.
like me to sorry.
Just to finish that off, the play parts came up. I'd just like to say that the first meeting today for the rejuvenation of the play parts of the 12 in our areas, and that's moving along quite nicely now, and I suppose we'll report back to full council at some stage when we go further down, but that's looking, the wheels are going forward. Thank you.
Thanks for that update. Do you want to come in now, Caro, so that we're now on section 3, which is balance sheet and earmark reserve. So appendix 2 and appendix 3.
And this is the earmark for staffing. So at the end of year, not last year, the previous year, there was £50,000 balance in that pot, which would have gone towards additional staff costs if there'd not been sufficient budget to cover that. At the end of last year, we council agreed to move the 150,000 where we got shortfall in spend to an EMR for staff. So if we come to a situation where we need additional staff, we currently have a reserve for that money. That's not to say when we do the budget, my intention is that we also look at what earmark reserves we've currently got and decide whether they should be in different pots. But if they don't go into an earmark reserve, they go back into the general reserve.
Yeah, it just struck me as a bit weird. I can think like one ferret away, I don't know, 30, 40 grand or something, but 200 is just eek.
Yeah, it was just a surplus at the end of last year. It was 150.
Won't necessarily, we've got leeway over what we put in there, and the next budget we can just say, well, we're not putting that in there anymore. We're shoving it into something else.
Yeah.
I guess we could hold it over to do for the pay award or something.
Pay awards generally built into the budget. I've built in 3.8% into this next year's budget based on the inflation rate at the end of August.
Okay.
But if it was to come in over 3.8%,
Yeah.
we've got that earmarked to
Yeah.
fall back on, so there's always some money.
Because we have no control over the national debt.
No.
Harry?
It was just, do you know how much net pay award 3.8, whatever, how much extra it adds on to a town council's budget with the number of staff that we have, how much extra, my brain can't do the mathematics.
No. Not off the top of my head.
I'm just kind of curious how big of a chunk it is.
Well, of course, we've done the budget based on the revised staff structure as well. No, sorry, I can send you an email to confirm that.
I'm curious now.
Committee members. Of course, it's 3.8% on the staff budget, and then it's 3.8% on the national insurance, or the national insurance on that, and the pension on that. So it's quite a chunk.
My questions on the earmarked reserves is one, I guess we show the ward member initiative scheme, and I'll slap my hand that I've yet to put in my bids for that. So this does show that people need to come forward and put their bids in. I've got some ideas, but I need to just my finger out, so I can get that done. The other element is, when do we don't do environments or move the earmarked reserves into general reserves or anything until the end of the year, do we? So things like cultural development, we've just got £940 left over. We'll hold that until the end of the year.
We can move the earmark reserves around if we want. That was 50,000, 940 or whatever,
Yeah.
but we then put that money in the earmark reserve at the bottom, which is for the Museum of Somerset.
Yes. Oh yes, I can see
That
that.
was larger. The 940, I think, it's been there since year one.
Okay. Because I like round numbers, so I was like, I was thinking, going 940. I wonder where we got that from. But no, it's we'll do that at the end of the year, then we'll tidy them up.
Yes, as I say, I think this year we need to look at those as we're going through the budget setting and decide whether they really need to be there. Some
Any other questions on the earmarked reserves? Nope. So we'll go on to the next section. So I'm scrolling back up here. Is on the environments that we've done. So that's appendix number 4. And an overview is given at 4.1. Any questions or comments on those?
we can
Okay.
just go back. I've actually found the budget. The pay rise adds the pay award at 3.8% adds 120,000 to our budget.
It's quite good we have the 200,000, because if it does come in at like 4%, it just gives us a buffer in order to help with that.
Yeah, timing wise, so when does that, remind me, how does that fit in with our precepting? Is it like we precept before we know the final doodah? Oh, I see.
Yeah, that happens in all local government, doesn't it? You precept it at the same amount while negotiations are happening, and then waiting for.
Well, the last 3 years it's been November by the time that's happened, but this year it was July.
Any questions on the environments? We've done, so we've moved a little bit of money around in different places. I'm seeing the legal fees from other professional fees, is that's what you're relating to unauthorised encampments. So if we just have one overall pot, it will help. If there's no questions on that section, we'll go to section 5, which is appendix 5, which is all the payments that we've made. I was finding this most interesting in the fact that we literally list down to, I don't know, £1.71 that we've paid. So that literally we are so open and transparent in relation to the funds that we make. So any questions on any of these rather long pages of payments we've made? And I don't expect girls to know £1.71.
No, it's probably done on a trade card.
Yeah.
It's just.
But just so that, yeah, so we are so transparent there. Nothing on those. So then just back up to the auditors. So really positive news that we've had that end of year audit with no comments, because that's really, really positive from that perspective. And that we've got our first internal audit in just under a month. So any questions on audit? No? I think I've gone through all of that, haven't I? So we need to just note it. So I'm happy to propose it. I need a seconder. Caro, all those in favour? Brilliant. So go on to, honestly, the final item on the agenda is our medium-term financial strategy. So, actually,
Having considered the strategies for all of the other service lines, then I pulled together this document to cover the medium-term strategy for 2025 to 2028 as a guiding financial management document, so it aligns with our strategic priorities. The strategy really emphasises our need to reduce our reliance on the precept, manage our risks, explore alternative funding, and look to ensure we've got long-term financial stability. And the strategy has 5 key ambitions. So delivering a balanced budget. So we start off with zero-based budgeting to try and look at all of our costs so that we can deliver a balanced budget. Achieving financial resilience through income and reserve growth. Effective treasury management. You've seen how much income we've been making on our interest from moving our money to CCLA. Prudent borrowing and using leasing for asset acquisition, and to optimise external funding by working in partnership where we're not eligible to any grants. Who's got any questions?
Can I just give a little bit more context? Obviously, this medium-term financial strategy is part of a suite of strategies that will be coming to the November council meeting. So obviously you've got your corporate plan that sits at the top. Underneath that, we've got the service area strategy. So we've got the communities in place, operations assets, the financial strategy, the management strategy, so reporting, KPIs, etc., and then the organisation strategy as well. So that's your strategies. It's all coming to full council in November, and then what pins all of those strategies together is your business plan, which will be coming again to your November meeting. So this is just part of the suite that you've got. It sets obviously the direction and what we can then follow.
You, Gail, and just to say that I welcome this medium-term financial strategy. I think it's much needed, and I think we, as members, we have to realise that we can't do everything. Much as we'd love to, we can't, and I think we have to, and it's we always say that we have ever mindful of the precept, and I think it's great that it's recognised that. And as I said earlier, we have to look at external funding if we want to achieve many of those things that we as members would like to see. So yeah, I really welcome this, and thank you for all you do, Gail. Thank goodness we've got you. All right.
Yeah, I think it's a good, strategy. What was I want to say? Oh, yeah, I think that there's a limit to how much income we can generate other than what we're already doing. So we've got the precept, and we need to not raise it by hardly in the previous year because people have taken a massive hit. We've got to sort of, this plateau now, and the cost of living crisis. We've got to be really, really careful what we know, really, really careful. And I'm confident that we can deliver loads even with the precept at this level. we're earning a nice amount from interest on money in the bank, which is really good. We've got still coming in some section 106, etc. I just think, and we do have like a few odd little other, you know, park hire, I would just caution against people reading those. I don't disagree with anything in your strategy. It's just that sometimes people fixate on we must enhance income generation, and then they end up making silly decisions. So we've got to make money out of this. Quick, let's go for this. And it's like, no, what are you doing? So I just think we need to be a little bit careful. I mean, parks might be quite a good, you know, sometimes it's wise to say, well, you know, we can, like with the Taunton Green thing, we can get a new sort of thing, facilitate something really great for the community, boost community well-being, all sorts of pluses. And we get a little bit, you know, we might get a little bit of money from it. Great, got no issue with that at all. But I think sometimes I can see sort of maybe sneaking in sort of things like, oh, well, we need to make money, so we ought to be agreeing. And no, that's one factor, and you need to think of the bigger picture. But I do like the goals and whatever, and the way you set this out, and I would concur with it.
Any other questions? No.
Yeah, I always ask just a basic for me, really. So I saw the interest payments coming in. So just for me, other experienced counsellors. So how does that? We know we're not sure what those payments are going to be each month because they fluctuate the investments. But when we come to set the preset, we get all this interest in. How does that feed? How does that feed back in to help us control what we determine the preset? If I was doing a household budget and I was short on something like food, I would go, oh, but I've got this massive stack of interest coming in. I'm going to use some of that to make sure I don't go over budget on others. And the other thing was about the investment over longer term. It says it's too early in our life cycle to consider investing over medium to long term. Again, I'm not a finance. So is that because we don't fully understand, we don't have enough history to safely tuck that money away for that long yet? And how long do you perceive before we can start looking at medium to long term?
I think that's difficult.
Okay, no worries.
But I think that's tying up money for 5 years.
Yeah.
I spoke when we went actually to the SLCC conference to CCLA, and they agreed that it's too early to tie money up for 5 years because they might need it. So that's why I've said that. As far as the interest goes, we've been moving the interest every month from our income and expenditure account to an earmark reserve, and we've used some of that money for other things, one being Plan B for the PWLB loan, so in case we lose income on Trafalgar House. But next year my proposal in the budget is to keep 200,000 of that preset in the income and expenditure account to offset, so that we're not having to pay as much, so we're not having to get as much preset to cover all of our other costs. And then once we move beyond the 200,000, subject to interest rates staying at a decent level, then we can start putting that away into the earmarks. But we really should be using that to reduce our preset requirement.
My question is just whether, and the strategy, brilliant, is just whether we put the loan income in as income generation, but because it's where we're saying analysis of our income generation.
Generation's perhaps not the right.
And that's what I was just trying. And that's what I was just trying to work out. So it is an income, but it's not actually. Do we just need to separate out that there's money that we get in from hiring the tennis courts, and that's truly added money, and then there's others that we get in because we need it in. If that makes sense. Because I wasn't sure at one point whether we were using the loan income almost for internal borrowing purposes at one point when I read this, rather than
they only set off the amount that we paid for it. Exactly.
Yes, yeah. That was my only point.
Any change that?
Because I know that there are other, it might be interesting to maybe work with the Super Councils network, just to see what other income generation ideas there are, not straying away from this, but just it's a constant learning from those kind of bigger authorities as to other things that they've done that works in line with their corporate priorities and goals that we can flex. Kind of learning from it, I guess.
There are a couple of things coming up in the pipeline which we can discuss.
Can I just say as well, I think Angela went on a course conference webinar, and that was some of the larger councils speaking, and one of the ideas there is to do crowdfunding as well for things, which is very common now. So we're looking into that.
Any other questions on this one? Seven, and okay, I'll propose this. Need a seconder, Carrie, all those in favour? Brilliant work, girl, thank you, and Donna. And Julia, for tonight's meeting, all done by 7:30.
So that strategy is now going to full council.
Cheers.